Welcome to Behind the Gavel. I'm Linda Bear,
And I'm Jackie McKinney.
and we're here to tell you about what you're going to be seeing on at the council agenda this evening. Meeting starts at 7 p.m., so we'll be off before then so that they can get a prompt beginning. So what have you noticed? You were mentioning Westbrook Village, I
Yes,
think,
it was
earlier.
interesting. The authorization to do a redevelopment project on Westbrook Village. Westbrook Village was one of about a half a dozen projects that were built around 1950 in response to all the fellows that came back from the war, got married, started raising families, and there wasn't enough housing for all these people. So these Charter Oak, Rice Heights, Bowles Park, Westbrook Village, these were all a part of these housing projects. I grew up in Bowles Park. And there was an article some time ago in a local historical magazine that told why these projects were built. They weren't necessarily built as low-income housing, more of just a response for housing to house all these local soldiers who came home and needed houses in the city. And then they evolved over time. And most of them are not longer here. I mean, they've been physically torn down, Bowles Park the latest. And now I see Westbrook Village. It was the final
one.
Final one. And that too is going to be torn down and redeveloped into rental apartments, a percentage of them affordable, and a percentage of market rates, and flats and townhouses. 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, which means they will be very suitable for families.
Absolutely.
Those of you who are feeling a little nostalgic for Westbrook Village, you might want to go and have your final ride through.
Yeah.
Because they will be no more.
One of the reasons this is on the agenda right now is that the city is going to give a tax abatement to the owners of Westbrook Village, even though the land is currently and will be owned by the Hartford Housing Authority, which would make it tax exempt. They're leasing the property to the owner for 50 years, and that in effect makes it not tax exempt anymore.
Okay.
So the city has stepped in and agreed to give a 15-year tax abatement this is the first phase. There probably will be additional phases after this. This one is 75 units, 60 of them affordable to lower income people. So although normally they would pay $2,606 a year per unit for each unit per year.
That would be the taxes?
That would be the taxes.
Okay.
But the taxes with the abatement would only be $675 per year, so that's like 25% of what it would otherwise be.
Okay.
So that makes a big difference in terms of what people can pay for rent.
Yeah. It makes it really falls into the affordable, plus it's brand new housing.
Yes.
All of these projects were over 50 years old and we're in the need of major redevelopment if they stayed in their existing format.
Their best days.
Their best days are long gone.
There's another tax abatement on the agenda for Wolcott Place. This is not a new construction. In 1982, this 18-unit rental housing project got a tax abatement, but now the owner is selling it, so selling the property.
The property.
Yeah, so the tax abatement will be transferred to the new owners. This
Now,
one
where is this located?
on Wolcott, and there's another street next to it, but Wolcott Street.
Okay.
18 units of housing. The tax abatement ends in 2022, so they still have a few years left on it.
To work it through,
Work it
though.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could find out what was the question you asked me? Well, what are the streets?
Yeah, that's okay.
Ward.
Ward,
and
okay.
Wolcott. Yep.
Then I know, that's
Yep.
near
It's in the south.
Zion Street, where the
Yes.
cemetery is, that
Correct.
old historic cemetery.
Yep.
Yep.
So, there's a new ordinance on the agenda having to do with tobacco products.
Interesting.
This was submitted by a number of different council people, not just one. Let me see. Councilman Deutsch, Bermudez, Clark, Fox, Gale, and Sanchez. So 6 council people have submitted it. And it has 2 components. One component is that anyone who sells tobacco in the city, retailers will have to get a license from the city.
Oh,
And then the other part is that you can't sell tobacco to anyone under 21. I believe the age now is 18. And so there are penalties in here in case the retailers don't do what they're supposed to. A $250 fine, suspension of their license, or revocation of their license. So this will go to a public hearing. Let's see, October 15th.
Second Monday, yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I imagine that there will be quite a lot of people showing up to talk, either in favor or perhaps in opposition if you're a retailer. There will be a fee for the license, but that will be approved by the council at a later date.
Okay, it's just the concept.
Concept is before us now. Yep.
Well, I did attend or I was at a meeting where a gentleman made a presentation on not the existing tobacco products that we think of as just cigarettes or cigars or pipes, but on the electronic cigarettes and all of these tobacco products that are done and designed to attract teenagers. They are all flavored cigars, cigarillos that are flavored with kind of odd flavors to me, blueberries or
something like
whatever. But evidently they must be very attractive to young people. So it's getting these people involved in tobacco-related products that would later probably transfer itself to cigarettes and cigars.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that vaping.
Vaping, yes, that's the other thing, right? And it's sort of hit a crisis moment, and with the thinking that we really need to step up and do something about this.
So I think these council people have said, let's take this approach. And
Yeah.
I'm sure if there's further discussion, the approach could be amended. But at least it sets something forward. And I don't know if there's I believe there is a definition of tobacco products in the ordinance, which might be broader than just what we were saying, cigarettes.
Right.
Pipes and
The
stuff like
electronic cigarettes
Right,
and all of
right.
that.
Yep.
So it was interesting. It was an eye-opener to me, this
Yeah,
talk. So I suppose if any of you get an opportunity to hear someone talk on these products, it's worth the time. It was like, what? Oh, gee, how come I didn't know that?
I know.
So,
Probably if we don't smoke, we're not as aware.
right. And I'm an ex-smoker, so.
Ah.
But it's been long enough now where
You don't think about it
I don't think too
anymore.
much about it. So,
My mom-
okay.
All right. My mother used to dream about smoking, like 30 years after she
And she
gave
gave
it up.
it up.
She would mention that now and
I
then.
used to have a friend who'd said, that when she got in stressful situations, she would say, if I was a smoker, I'd be smoking now.
But she wasn't, so she didn't.
So, yeah, she never did start, but that was sort of, it got her through the crisis, I guess.
Yep, whatever works. The council is expected to approve the Neighborhood Revitalization Zone Strategic Plan for Southwest and Behind the Rocks. It came before them a month or so ago. They had a public hearing, went to committee. Committee recommends approval. And it, just in brief, contains a vision, the goals and objectives for the whole range of aspects of life in the neighborhood, the people who live there, green space, recreational facilities, transportation, education, quality of life, housing, businesses, and community resources. So they've really taken the broad view to what should happen in their neighborhood. And they meet every month, and as most NRZs do, yep, to work on implementation of the plan. But officially, as of tonight, we expect that this will be the plan. And one of the positive sides is that anyone proposing a project in their neighborhood should check out the plan and make sure that their proposal is in conformance with what the plan says.
Where they're going. And this is Behind the Rocks' first
Yes. Yep.
strategic plan, so it's kind of exciting.
It is, yeah. They initially didn't pursue it, but then a couple of years ago decided perhaps it would be useful to them. And so they went through a really extensive process of deciding what should be in the plan and having it approved by the residents. And now they're ready to move forward.
Speaking of plans, just a recommendation, there was a report on Planning, Economic Development, Housing Committee, report to them from Development Planning on the status of development projects. From those that are in the process of being completed to those that are still in dream format.
Right, right.
And it was very interesting. It's done neighborhood by neighborhood, and it's in Hartford.gov.
Okay. I think so.
And or if it isn't, it will be after today.
Right.
It's something worth pursuing. Not that a novel or something would be more interesting. However, this is interesting. I started through it, poking at it, and found I stopped and started reading it.
Oh,
So it was just
excellent.
an interesting thing of a lot of things that I've forgotten that were done or being in the process of being completed, to new visions for the city. So I will recommend that.
And I think you can get a hard copy at the town clerk's office.
Oh, okay, that would make sense.
If that makes sense to you. Or you could contact the mayor's office, ask for Linda, and I'll email you a copy.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else? Do we have 2 grants to be
Yes.
accepted? One is $30,000 from the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management, and this is for a program called Hartford Alternative to Arrest.
That's very interesting.
Yes, I thought so too. That instead of arresting people who are, we do some of this already, like we go to community court for quality of life crimes or infractions, and they'll try to hook you up with the necessary resources, a social worker. This is a little broader, I think, and it's going to be and focused somewhat on people with mental health issues. So they're working with the state's Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and to help divert people away from being arrested, which is part of a larger endeavor, I think, to divert folks from jail, from prison, and this is just even for being arrested, because it's usually not that productive to arrest someone who's acting out because of mental health issues.
And this sounds like a much more affordable way of dealing with that segment of the population with possibly better results
Right.
than incarceration.
Right.
Certainly cheaper.
Yes.
So,
And that makes a difference. Makes a difference.
so it'll be interesting how that, as that progresses, how it develops.
Yeah, how it's implemented.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other grant is $259,000 for DUI enforcement, or driving while impaired. So as most of you probably know, there are stops every now and then. What do you call those?
Speed traps,
Speed
but they are released for speeding.
Right.
Where, they pull over each of the cars
Yep.
to check to see if you've
have
been
been
drinking. Yes.
Yep. So obviously, we all know don't drink and drive. but unfortunately, some people still do. So these are kind of focused stops. They target certain areas
Yeah,
where there seem
neighborhood,
to
yeah.
be a lot of incidents occurring.
Like I live in Asylum Hill near the railroad station, and they periodically do have stops there because that's where all the clubs are.
Oh,
And so the
right.
clubs empty out,
Yep.
and so it's a captive group
Yep.
at 1:30 in the morning.
Right. And sometimes they find other things wrong with your car or
Yeah.
something, and they tell you that as well.
Be sure you wear your seatbelt too when you leave the clubs. So,
There's another report from the Planning, Economic Development, and Housing Committee on a presentation having to do with blighted properties.
yes.
And there's a report connected with that as well, which is available through the same means that Jackie mentioned on the development projects. So you might want to check that out.
Any highlights to that, or have you not seen it?
I saw it, but I didn't read it in
Oh, okay.
detail. I'm
Okay.
embarrassed to say.
Oh, no, that's okay. I didn't read it either, so I was.
But
I
it
guess
does,
you'll have to read it for yourself.
it
folks.
does highlight all the housing, or all the buildings rather, that have been cited for blight and what action is being taken. So in most cases, it appeared, just from a rough review, that owners are responding in large part. If they don't respond, they get cited again.
Yeah,
But
and it's expensive.
it is.
It's
it
so
is,
many
yeah.
hundreds of dollars per day per
Lighting
like
factor.
infraction of
Infraction,
whatever. Yes, so that could be expensive.
Right, right. So if at all possible, fix up your building. Let's see.
Well, the Heaven sign,
yeah.
that's kind of fun. You know, the
Right.
skate park down on Main Street, just before, if you're going south, just before you get to Capital Community College.
Right,
They're going to get their own sign.
which is a giant skateboard, a metal skateboard.
I haven't
And
seen it.
says
Oh, that's great.
Heaven across it,
Heaven.
'cause that's what they call it, Heaven Skate Park.
Yeah. So if you are a skateboarder, but if you're
Yes,
not, it is, it looks from a distance or at the first glance just like street, spraying art, but it is quite well done.
It is.
It's
Yep. You might call it graffiti, but also you
Yeah.
can call it murals.
Murals, yeah.
And it's really throughout the park. It's really a crazy, in a good
Yeah.
way, park. It's very unusual. It's not like your grass and trees park.
Right, yeah. It's what you would, yeah, it's for skateboarders.
Right, right. And it's built over 84.
Right.
By 84. So the location is a little unusual as well. Has a good view of Dunkin' Donuts Stadium.
Yeah.
So,
So if you're ever in the area, if you've gone to Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, it's worth walking through just to see the artwork.
Absolutely.
And most certainly to see the sign.
yeah, yeah. So I think once the council acts, which is expected to be tonight, then the Public Works Department can install the sign in
Okay.
the park.
Okay.
So that will be happening within the next couple of weeks.
A nice addition.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, there are a lot of items back on the agenda, like the drones. We've talked about them,
I was
I
going
don't
to
know how many
say,
times.
yeah. Do you think is it ready to be approved, or is it
I don't think
just?
so, because
No.
there was no report from a committee.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that when there's a report from committee, that's probably when it will be,
Well, this
Move
could take some time to work out. The whole concept of drones is new.
yep,
And I suppose if we're going to have some legislation on it, it needs to make sense.
yep.
And do it
Yep.
right, so.
Let's see, what else, anything? A couple of appointments. Appointment of Tammy Leach to the Commission on Women. That commission has been revived. I think it has like 15 members. and
Okay.
Can have up to 20. So if you are interested in serving on that commission, it's just now started meeting again after
So,
a hiatus.
yeah. It's
So-
calling all.
Calling all people who might be interested.
Right.
Also, Councilman Sanchez is recruiting people for the Film, Video, and Media Commission.
Well, say more about that.
Yeah. I had occasion to look at the ordinance. It was revised, the ordinance, in last year, 2017. But because there was a lack of anybody to staff it, no appointments had been made. But Councilman Sanchez has assigned his personal staff person, Haley Ortiz, to be the staff person, and so now he's looking for people who are interested. It's a pretty broad mission. It's really focused on the production of video, film, etc. here in Hartford to attract companies,
Film companies.
film companies, and individuals who have businesses that support film companies to come here to Hartford and to do their production here instead of
Other places.
Hollywood or somewhere else.
That's lucrative.
I think
That
so.
could be very lucrative,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So you do have to be a Hartford resident or a Hartford business person with a strong connection to Hartford. So this is a little unusual in that most commissions you have to be a resident. But they thought that if there were businesses that were in the production arena, it would be good to get some people from there on the commission. So you might call Councilman Sanchez in the council offices or his assistant Haley. Tell them you're interested and they'll tell you how to
That'll
apply.
do. Okay.
Yeah. So that's something new that we haven't been doing lately.
And just one more thing, residency requirements. It looks like a resolution, they're gonna finally, are refining the definition of a bona fide resident of Hartford.
Right. The way that it's written is that whatever address you use on your IRS application has to be on your Hartford application or records, and also that you have to certify that you have all your belongings wherever it is that you live, and that's where you have people over.
And entered, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't, in other words, you just can't buy a little one-room
No.
apartment
No.
and say you're a resident of
No.
Hartford.
No.
Okay,
Unfortunately, there have been people who did
Who've
that
done
sort
that,
of
yes,
thing, and
yeah.
so everyone suffers.
yeah,
I do want to mention that there's a candidate forum coming up on October
oh, good,
2nd
yes.
for lieutenant governor candidates, which will be at the library next door. And then on the 9th will be governor candidates, and everyone is invited.
Okay,
So-
and it's good we're doing lieutenant governors. I did hear on
Yeah.
the news, somebody was opining about, why don't we do anything for the lieutenant
Right.
governor
So there we
position?
are.
So there we are.
It's
Sounds good.
sponsored by Hartford Votes Coalition. I think our time is up.
Yeah.
So we'll say good evening and
And good
stay
evening.
tuned for the council meeting.
Yes, good night.
This. Okay. Okay, we're going to get started. Councilwoman Winch, we're going to get started. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Council's regularly scheduled monthly meeting. Without further ado, Mr. Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilwoman Bermudez?
Present.
Councilman Clark?
Here.
Councilman Deutsch? Councilwoman Fox? Giselle? Thank you. Councilman Gale?
Here.
Councilwoman Rosado?
Here.
Thank you. Councilman Sanchez?
Present.
Councilwoman Thames?
Present.
Councilwoman Winch?
Here.
We have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I think before we get started, we have a couple of points of personal privilege. Mr. Councilman Clark, I believe you have one tonight. You have the floor. Here's the mic.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to recognize these wonderful group of people here. And they are representatives of the Hartford Premier and Development League, as well as their organizers and their officers. So I will read the citation for the organization, and also have citations for members of the representatives of the league. And so the citation reads, Court of Common Council, official citation presented to the Hartford Premier and Development League. On behalf of the Court of Common Council, I would like to extend my sincerest congratulations to you in your 30-plus years of service to the Hartford Premier Development League. Your dedication to teaching children soccer in the city of Hartford is invaluable. Your tireless efforts and commitment is why Hartford is a great place to live, work, and play. Without your many talents, we would not be the beacon of hope Hartford is today. This is one of the many reasons you're being honored today, and on behalf of the Court of Common Council and the residents of the city of Hartford, we thank you for your continued service in serving our community and our children. Signed by yours truly, dated today. And so when I recognize your name, can you please come forward? Mr. Andrew Murray. We can give him a round of applause. We have Mr. Easton Wilson. Mr. Olajimi Simpson. Is he here? He's not here? Is there a representative that can take this on his behalf? Okay. Yep. Ms. Shauna Witter. Okay. Mr. Kenio Martin. Mr. Donovan Bell. And Mr. Ashton Archer. All right, are there any other representatives? None here. I see some soccer, our wonderful friends from our new soccer team. Come on up here. Come on up. And is there somebody from the Parks Commission that's here? Mr. Stan Walker, come on up as well. These are wonderful people that help make it happen here in the city of Hartford for soccer, and they are supporters of soccer for youth development as well as our adult leagues as well. And so we just wanted to thank them for their service and their commitment to the city of Hartford.
All right, so we have another personal point of privilege on behalf of myself and the mayor's office, which Janice Castle, our director of community engagement, is here on behalf of the mayor to do our monthly volunteer of the month award. In both categories, we have an adult volunteer of the month and we have a youth volunteer of the month. So I'm going to hand it over to Janice, and so she can do her presentation.
Thank you, Madam Council President. Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here today because, as we know, a lot of things that happen in the city of Hartford is through the generous contribution of volunteers, both who live in and out of the city, who work tirelessly to make a difference in our city. So I'm happy to be here on behalf of Mayor Bronan to speak to present these citations for the September Volunteer of the Month. And I'm going to begin with Mr. Richard Wasserman. If you can join us, please. And he's joined by his student buddy. So I will read the proclamation by the Honorable Luke Bronan, Mayor. It says, whereas the city of Hartford is strengthened by the work of thousands of people every year who volunteer their time and energy to make Hartford a better place, and whereas in April 2018, the City of Hartford launched a volunteer recognition program to express the city's gratitude to volunteers who go above and beyond to serve Hartford. And whereas Richard Weiserman was nominated because of his commitment and service to the City of Hartford, and whereas Richard Weiserman has been an active member of the Greater Hartford Read to a Child organization since 2014, reading along with his student partner, Jay Malaya, with his student partner, Jay Malaya, during school lunch breaks at Betances School's Early Reading Lab. And whereas Richard Weiserman also serves as chair of the Greater Hartford Read to a Child Board of Advisors, lending his expertise and wide network of community connection to help grow and sustain the program, which serves 163 kindergarten through 4th grade Hartford students during the 2017-2018 school year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Luke A. Bronin, Mayor of the City of Hartford, along with the Court of Common Council and the citizens of Hartford, do hereby proclaim Richard Weiserman as Volunteer of the Month in the City of Hartford for September 2018. And we would like to call Ms. Chanel Williams, who is being recognized as our Youth Volunteer of the Month for September. So Chanel Williams was nominated because of her commitment and service to the City of Hartford, and because of her positive attitude and willingness to help whenever and whatever necessary. And whereas Chanel Williams has been an active member and volunteer with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Hartford, volunteering approximately 15 hours per week during the school year, and whereas Chanel Williams is also a member of the Keystone Team Leadership Program, helping make the budget, purchase supplies, and prepare food for the club's snack shop. As a respected and reliable volunteer, now therefore be it resolved that I, Luke A. Bronin, Mayor of the City of Hartford, along with the Court of Common Council and the citizens of Hartford, do hereby proclaim Chanel Williams as Youth Volunteer of the Month in the City of Hartford for September 2018.
Thank you, Janice, and just want to reiterate all that was said and acknowledging both of you on behalf of the entire City Council. We have an official citation to present to you both. The first is to Richard Wasserman, and I just want to first and foremost say thank you for your service and taking time out of what I know is a very busy day and schedule to give back to our children, where we know reading is so essential and so important, so we appreciate you for that. So we are presenting official citation to Mr. Richard Wasserman on behalf of the City of Hartford Court of Common Council. Congratulations on being selected as the City of Hartford's Volunteer of the Month for September 2018. The Court of Common Council would like to thank you for your numerous contributions and commitment to the Greater Hartford community. Your leadership will have an impact on many generations to come. Thank you. And so next we have Ms. Chanel Williams. And again, I just want to say thank you for being a model student, a role model, because our kids need to see role models in their environment. So we appreciate you for standing up and putting yourself out there and for all the positive contributions that you're providing to not only your community, but the Boys and Girls Club. So we are going to present an official citation to you, to Ms. Chanel Williams, on behalf of the City of Hartford Court of Common Council. Congratulations on being selected as the City of Hartford's Youth Volunteer of the Month for September 2018. The Court of Common Council would like to thank you for your contributions and commitment to the Greater Hartford community. Your leadership will have a positive impact for many generations to come. Thank you. And so if we can all, can we have our recipients come in the middle so we can get a good picture, please? Thank you again. Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to hand the floor over to Mr. Majority Leader to take us through the agenda. You have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. Through you, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and add items number 23, Number 23, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee communication concerning refers resolution placed on the committee's agenda, which was postponed at the committee meeting, requesting that the administration reevaluates the speed limit on all city streets and designate our most compact streets, and to work OSTA to designate pedestrian priority. Item number 24, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee communication concerning refer resolution placed on the committee agenda, which was postponed at the committee meeting, concerning maintaining the moratorium until an ordinance is approved regulating the use, data management, and storage of the data recorded by the unmanned aerial vehicles. Item number 25, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee with accompanying resolution authorizing the execution of a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection to allow the City of Hartford's Fire Department to utilize the Connecticut Land Mobile Radio Network to enhance public safety. Item number 26 is Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee with accompanying resolution requesting authorization to accept monthly reimbursement of salary expenses of a Hartford police detective assigned to the Connecticut Intelligence Center. Item number 27, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee with accompanying resolution requesting authorization to accept 2 donated vehicles for the National Insurance Crime Bureau. And item number 28, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee with the accompanying resolution requesting authorization to accept a grant of $189,922 from U.S. Department of Justice to pay for police overtime expenses associated with criminal investigations, targeted enforcement, and greater police presence.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly. A motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilman Deutsch.
Thank you, Madam President, and my council colleagues and members of the public. Some people who have been around for a while, and some who have not, will know that a supplemental, the supplemental agenda, in theory, comes out at the last minute with urgent matters. Because the regular agenda is supposed to have what's going to come up at this meeting for the sake of the public and the press, so they can read it in advance as to what we're taking up. And I remember, again, Council President Torres some years ago made an issue of it. So I wonder if I can ask, it may seem academic, I don't know what kind of attention this matter is getting, but if there are any of these items that are truly urgent, so you have to stick them on the agenda at the last minute. I know some people here will agree with that. They would like to have advance notice. So also it can come in this very handy yellow page that summarizes for the public and the press what's going on in this meeting. So, Madam Council President, I would like to ask someone or someone in the majority if all of these have a time urgency, so it must go on tonight, rather than according to the rules, which is noon on Wednesdays. I mean, the only reason I bring it up is it's been a while since I've seen so many on a supplemental agenda like it's last minute. Like someone forgot to put it on, and it doesn't appear online the way the public is supposed to know all these things. So I wonder if someone...
To your question, there are a couple of time-sensitive matter grants that the city depends on with respect to getting reimbursement for services, as well as grants that are a part of our budget to operate programs. And the Public Safety Committee met last Tuesday, which was a Tuesday before the agenda day, and for whatever reason was not able to get the reports together in order to make that Wednesday deadline, and hence why they are coming before us today.
Through you, can you tell me which ones are urgent and which ones should have been submitted and can wait till the next meeting so the public knows about them in advance? List
There. Yeah.
Yes, Councilman Deutsch. Just so there's a better understanding, items number 23 and 24 is the receipt. It's just a report.
That's right.
And the other 4 items, one of them was a time-sensitive item, which is the JAG grant, and that was going onto the Action Committee until Councilwoman Claudine Fox decided that she wants to look into it further. So we did do that, and we sent it to the Quality of Life and Public Safety, where we all joined. You weren't there, but the rest of us did, and we did pass it with a favorable recommendation to council. So this is not a last-minute item. It was already looked into, spoken about at committee, and we sent it to council. Unfortunately, because the committee landed on Tuesday, the report has to be in by 12 noontime on Wednesday. There was not enough time to have the minutes from the recording printed and laid out and sent to clerk's office.
Which item is that one, 26? Yeah, is that 26? Or 28?
28.
Well,
Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch?
abstain.
Councilwoman Fox? Councilman Gale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado?
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch?
Yes.
Rules are suspended.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to put the following items on the consent calendar. Item number 2, number 4, 13, 14, 20, 21, 25, 27, and 28.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion on the consent calendar? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch? Councilwoman Fox? Councilman Gale?
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado?
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames?
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch?
Yes.
Pass.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to receive the following items. Items number 6, number 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 23, and 24.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez?
Yes.
Councilman Clark?
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch,
Yes.
Councilwoman Fox, Councilman Gale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado,
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez,
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames,
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch. Pass.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
I'd like to refer the following items at which my colleague, Minority Leader Bermudez, will read the information of the items. Item number 1, to the Operations Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee. Item number 3, to the Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee. Item number 5, to the Operations Management, Budget, and Government Accountability Committee. And item number 22, to the Health and Human Services Committee.
Second.
For item number 22, the public hearing will be Monday, October 15, 2018.
Thank you. A motion has been made and properly seconded. Minority Leader, you have the floor.
Item number 1, authorization for the city to assign an existing tax abatement agreement from previous owner to new owner of Walkup Place, an 18-unit rental housing development for low and moderate income households located in 4 buildings on Walcott and Ward Streets. Item number 3, authorization to accept a grant of $30,000 from the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management for implementation of the Hartford Alternative to Arrest by the Police Department in collaboration with the Connecticut Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Item number 5, authorization for the city to enter into a 15-year tax abatement agreement for development on the site of Westbrook Village of 75 rental apartments, 60 affordable and 15 market rate units with a mix of flats and townhouses of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And item number 22, ordinance requiring all of Hartford retailers who sell tobacco products to obtain a city license and prohibiting the sale of tobacco products to anyone under the age of 21.
Any discussion on the referred items? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez,
Oh, Councilman Deutsch?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to draw attention, for the sake of all council members and the public perhaps, to item number 3. Can you put 3, is 3 up there?
It's there.
Yeah. I can't see from this angle, but I do know this. Item number 3, when you read it, and as you'll see in this yellow page, is to accept a grant from the Office of Policy and Management to have Hartford Alternative Arrest Program by the Police Department in collaboration with Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. I would like to just have us say how important this effort is if it lowers the incarceration rate, especially of our young people, and finds alternative to imprisonment, which you know is just huge, not only in Hartford, but in Connecticut and the United States as a whole. So, Madam President, could you please reiterate for us the time of the meeting, the committee meeting, so that the public can attend and give its suggestions to how to avoid having young men and young women imprisoned and accumulate a prison record when really the justice system, many of us think, could operate with a little more justice and less punitive, especially for young people. Could someone indicate, and the public is warmly invited to come to this meeting with their suggestions, so we don't have so many young people thrown into jail for years and years. And my final comment is this. The state legislature starts meeting in January. Everyone knows that. But a lot of times these bills that may affect the incarceration rate should be ready before January. Am I right? And now's the time to think about good legislation so that we don't have so many young people either pleading guilty when they're really innocent or otherwise getting lengthy sentences, where Connecticut is behind many other states in having this kind of thing. Can you tell us when is the committee meeting, please?
So the next Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee will be October 16th at 5:30 here in Council Chambers, 550 Main Street. And the committee meets every third Tuesday of every month at 5:30. Thank you. Any more discussion on the referred items? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez.
Yes.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fox. Councilman Gale.
Yes, except as to item number 1, on which I recuse myself.
Duly noted.
Duly noted.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes to all of them except item number 5, which I'm recusing myself.
Duly noted.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch.
Yes.
Pass.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. Make a motion to postpone until October 9, 2018, following items. Item number 15, item number 16, item number 17, item number 18, and item number 19.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez.
Yes.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch.
Yes.
Councilwoman Fox. Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch.
Yes.
Pass.
Mr. Majority Leader, you have the floor.
Through you, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to put the following item for action. Item number 26, and item number 26 is a Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee with accompanying resolution requesting authorization to accept monthly reimbursement of salary expenses of a Hartford police detective assigned to the Connecticut Intelligence Center.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Minority Leader Bermudez.
Through you, Council President. So item number 26, which is to accept funds. At the onset, one would say, it's great because, you know, the city is always strapped for money and we are looking for ways, grants, et cetera, funding for us to be able to pay for employees, extra additional services, et cetera. But if you dig a little deeper, the concerns that I have in accepting this particular grant on item number 26. So for those who are unaware, there are fusion centers. And fusion centers is comprised of state, local, and federal partners that work together, along with the Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security and state police. And so fusion centers started off, for those who are not aware, they started off because of 9/11, right? So it was a policy that was instructed to be put into place because of 9/11 to prevent terrorism. And so whether that's external terrorism, internal terrorism, the whole point of the fusion center and with that, to create these intelligence centers to have a better way to track what's happening on the ground. Now you're probably wondering, what in the world does that have to do with Hartford? So Hartford is a sanctuary city. And right now, things are not looking very promising for many sanctuary cities when it comes to the privacy of those who live here. We have already had incidences where, and we've seen it here publicly when people have come to testify saying, you know, their loved ones have been taken by ICE. And so being handed out, is it already handed out? Yeah. Okay, so each one of the council members, you've received more information about fusion centers. The first page is right on the ACLU website. So concerns about fusion centers. Among the concerns is that at a fusion center, there's lack of transparency in terms of what data is being retained, what data is being extracted, and for what purposes. So it's, as ACLU highlights here, the private sector can participate. So some fusion centers have incorporated private sector corporations into the intelligence process. As many of you are aware already, private sector is where it's being operated. The detention centers are being operated by private corporations, just to give you an example. There's also data mining that happens at fusion centers. So federal fusion-centered guidelines encourage wholesale data collection and data manipulation process that also threaten privacy. And the ACLU goes on to enumerate a couple of other things. One other one that I want to highlight, because there's 5 different items on here, but ambiguous lines of authority. So in a multi-jurisdictional environment, it is unclear what rules apply and which agency is also ultimately responsible for the activities of the fusion center participants. All of that coupled in with the fact that not just are we talking about the undocumented community, but we're also talking about those individuals who are activists, who are very passionate about issues that are happening. And what is to say, because the lines of communication and the data or the information that we receive is very limited about fusion centers, what's to say that an activist is not targeted for posting an item on Facebook or any other social media or what have you? And so the line gets very blurry about how in Hartford, our fusion center is carrying out that information. And it's not just about people's privacy, but it goes beyond that. It goes on to people's security, and it goes on to people with such a very big West Indian population. It goes on to a concern of what happens then when fusion centers are being used as a way for the federal government to, in this case, potentially buy a liaison from the Hartford Police Department to operate, to extract certain information from the community of the undocumented West Indian community and or any other undocumented residents that we have here in the city. So these are all big concerns. I have read through the report that was submitted tonight to us from the Public Safety and Committee, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee, because it was not part of the original packet. But I have read the report, and I also understand that those who were present voted yes, including Councilwoman Fox, who could not be here because she is very ill. I did have a chance to speak with her on the phone, and she said that at this meeting that she attended, because she is a member of that committee, the Fusion Center was kind of glossed over. So the detailed information, and this is a summary of it, because there's more in terms of concerns about fusion centers. This was not brought up in that meeting. That was her concern, and that was something that she wanted to bring up tonight, had she been here. So beyond that, the packets that you've received from Homeland Security, this is from 2013. It just goes to show that the fusion centers do cooperate with ICE in the case of North Carolina, where these are success stories that they had of how they were able to apprehend individuals. And as is in the case of Utah, this was someone who was committing, as the Homeland Security deemed here, was committing fraud because they were using a passport of someone who was deceased. So the bigger point is, how is ICE, how is the federal government taking this information, and how are the fusion centers operating? So for me personally, based on the information that we've gotten, there's a lot of pause and concern.
Councilman Clark.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Minority Leader, for expressing your concerns. Just want to add, for the point of clarification to the audience and the viewing public, that fusion centers did not come up in our discussion at the Quality of Life and Public Safety meeting. And I would like to call everyone's attention to the correspondence from the mayor's office to us regarding the CTIC, which it says CTIC operates under a privacy policy that is designed to, among other things, promote CTIC agency and user conduct that complies with applicable law and assist CTIC and its users in protecting individual privacy, civil rights, civil liberties, and other protected interests. And also, too, one of the points of this resolution for reimbursement is the fact that we have officers who are getting reimbursed for working in this center. So this is just a simple reimbursement, and so the fact that if we can't pay the officer, then this work is not getting done. And they are working on behalf of the city to ensure also to the privacy of the individuals as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman Winch.
Yes, Madam President, I just want to kind of reiterate a little bit of what Councilman Clark was saying, that this isn't about, the Fusion Center. This is about one of our employees who we sent to work on that behalf, and they're refunding us basically, or reimbursing us for the money that we paid out for that service.
Thank you, Councilman Deutsch.
Thank you, Madam President. I hope that people were listening carefully to what Minority Leader Bermudez just said about the possibility of misuse of this kind of sharing of data. And I would imagine everyone hopes it will be used to save people, like let's say in terms of the flow of drugs or especially in terms of terrorism. But I hope everyone remembers, even if they don't remember it, they might have read it in books, that when you share data among certain government agencies and then it either leaks out or it gets hacked or it's used behind closed doors, it results in some very bad things to some people who are noble. And I think first, let's say, of Dr. Martin Luther King, who must have been on all the fusion lists back at that time, with the FBI trying to smear him, dig up anything from other sources. And before him, certain Black Panthers that were suppressed, Huey P. Newton and some others. This may seem out of date, but don't we know even in a recent year or two that data like this has been used for positive reasons, but also very negative reasons, and especially now when Minority Leader Bermudez is sensitive enough to realize it can be used to spy upon immigrants, legal or not legal, and especially those who step out of line, who may have some political points to make, and then the agencies can share and finger that person and say, this is an agitator, a troublemaker. So, doesn't it make you think that we should slow down a little bit on sharing some of this data, and not just if it could be hacked, which it can, and everyone knows that, but if it's going to be used by some government agency or private agency. Just think about this private agency, Cambridge Analytica, that grabbed a lot of Facebook information and may have influenced the election of our esteemed president, Mr. Trump, through sharing of data of this kind, whether people knew it or not. So I have to mention these things because we don't think we should go so fast into all this data sharing when it could put some people on blacklists or put them in jail or whatever, however you think about it, especially those that cannot defend themselves or they are considered agitators. I mean, maybe some of us can speak from personal experience. We wound up on certain lists from data sharing, and one agency tells another, you better watch out for this person. So maybe I've said enough or too much, but don't you think instead of having this on a supplemental agenda that we should invite the public to come out in numbers indicating what do they think about data sharing and fusion centers? And I'm so grateful for my council colleague and some others who came up with this literature, which I hope everyone reads and should be published. So you know that there are, as they say, two sides to the sword. Every coin has two sides. All these slogans. And don't you want to have everyone think a little more about it before we share this data between the federal government, state police, ICE, city police, and the private agencies that might misuse it. All you need is some leakages, and people's reputations can be ruined.
Okay, thank you.
Just to finish. And of course, the press also should be involved in protecting privacy, which the press tries to do, and this may work against that.
Call the question, Madam President?
Motion has been made and properly seconded.
Call the question.
And that's called
On the call
suppressing
question.
dissent. That's called suppressing dissent.
Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez.
No.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch.
No.
Councilwoman Fox. Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch.
Yes.
Pass.
Okay, now we're back on the original item, and before, wait, is there a motion? Okay. Right, and that has been properly motioned and seconded. So before we take the vote, I just want to acknowledge the concerns of my council colleagues that have brought issues up regarding the notion of fusion centers, and I do think that is something that we should be concerned with and follow through with and follow up with to the broader issues of how data is secured and how we're sharing that information and ensuring that it's not having a negative impact on our community and being used against our community in a negative way. Totally acknowledge that and appreciate that, and I think that's something that we can follow up on. But in respect to this item, again, we have a detective and resources that are assigned to this, and this is not a new arrangement. It's been in play for some years, and essentially we are going to get reimbursed for time that is already spent. That is what item is about, hence why I'm supporting it. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilwoman Bermudez.
No.
Councilman Clark.
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch. Councilwoman Fox. Councilman Gale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Rosado.
Yes.
Councilman Sanchez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Thames.
Yes.
Councilwoman Lynch.
Yes.
Councilman Deutsch.
No.
Pass.
Thank you, and that concludes our meeting and our agenda for the evening. Thank you all for joining us in the audience and listening in at home. I do want to mention this week on Wednesday, September 26th, we will be having a COW, a committee of the whole, with police chief and HPT to go over a review of policies and procedures as they relate to the Hartford Police Department. It is a public meeting, and we will have a presentation by the police chief as well as public comment at the end. And that is, again, this Wednesday, September 26th, here in the Hartford City Council Chambers, 550 Main Street. Thank you all for joining us.